to Study Space Podcast, and this is our last podcast. Today you are tuning with Nolotando Qwabe and my partner
Kometsi Alimata. As today's podcast will be based on the film Dirty Pretty Things by Stephen Fierce 2002. It is a British thriller that follows Qwabe, an undocumented Nigerian immigrant who works in the London hotel and discovers a human organ and discovers that there is illegal trading that's happening. The film exposes the harsh reality faced by immigrants, survival, invisibility, while highlighting the corrupt system.
Firstly, we will start by interpreting and explaining the title of the film, which is Dirty Pretty Things. So the title gives us an irony, because how can dirty things be pretty? Because dirty things are not even attractive, admirable, and pleasing. So what is happening is that the film Dirty Pretty Things explore globalization as the main theme. Just to explain what globalization is. Globalization refers to the increasing interaction and integration among countries, cultures, and economies throughout the exchange of goods, services, ideas, and technology across different countries or borders.
In the film, we've got two main characters, Qwabe Fadibe, a Nigerian doctor who is played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, and Seneya, who is played by Audrey Tatu, while other characters contribute to the content of the film, who is Joel, Juliet, and Jimmy. Contribution of characterization to the content. The director uses different characters from different races to expose borders affecting the body of people.
Getting to the aim of this podcast. The aim of this podcast is to analyze how Fierce uses the film Dirty Pretty Things to expose how globalization can be oppressive, exploitative, and exclusive to those who are unable to access it. This includes the use of people, which refers to bodies, countries, which refers to borders, and wealthy, which is the power of those who are above the middle or the lower class of the hierarchy.
So now we'll be introducing one of the scholars whom her work connects with the film and the aim of the podcast. Emily is a scholar and a publisher of the article Intimacy of Globalization, Bodies and Borders on Screen.
Her article was published in 2006. Her connection to the film is analytical. She uses the feeling of body of portrayal of immigration and exploitation as part of her large framework on globalization.
Since we have introduced the film and the aim of the podcast, and also the scholar who contributes to this interpretation of the theme globalization, now we're gonna delve into analyzing 5 important plots of which contribute more in the film as the topic, by highlighting the harsh realities of globalization faced by migrants in London. This plot showcases and exposes the darker side of globalization in London and as a movie. The first plot of Dirty Pretty Things showcases the darker side of globalization through the character of Qwabe. Qwabe is a Nigerian doctor who is skilled but undocumented immigrant in London. He is forced to work multiple jobs as a receptionist in a hotel and a taxi driver during the day. At the hotel, he discovers a sinister trade whereby people are human trafficked and some are considered to be prostitutes. So Qwabe discovers a heart in the toilet, a human heart in the toilet, which represents the exploitation that happens in a hotel. Again, Qwabe's interaction with the hotel complex web of characters, including Juliet, who is a prostitute, and Joanne, who is the manager of the hotel. There is an underbelly of the complex and the darker side shown in London as a global economy. Through Qwabe's story, the film explores the marginalization, exploitation, and dehumanizing of migrants, revealing the darker side of globalization, and saw its impact on the vulnerable population.
The second example, the character of Senate reveals the darker secrets of immigrants in London through her experience of fear, exploitation, and loss of freedom. As an undocumented immigrant from Turkish, Sanaya constantly faces sexual and economic abuse from her boss, hotel clients, and her landlord, showing that immigrants faces exploitation.
The third example is the Juliet storyline. Juliet is a migrant who is forced in prostitution, and her experiences highlights the exploitation and commodification. Her interaction with Qwabe and Anda characters reveals the globalization darker underbelly, including human trafficking, abuse, and invisibility.
Our fourth example is the character Joanne, who through him we are able to see corruption, betrayal, and desperation. Joanne's participation in the illegal organ trade in the hotel shows how desperation can sometimes turn immigrants against one another for survival in a system that is stacked against them.
The last plot that showcases the darker side of globalization is the least plot of the film, where Sane and Juliet sold Joanne's kidney in the black market. This plot point highlights the darker side of globalization. The film critiques global economy's darker aspect, where human body parts are commodified and sold to the highest bidder.
In contrast with the film Dirty Pretty Things and Emily Davis, the intimacy of globalization, bodies, and borders on screen. The film critiques the new way in which globalization has created a new form of exploitation through human trafficking and organ trade. The film portrayal of characters like Qwabe, Sanaya, and Juliet highlight the human cost of globalization, exploitation of migrant laborers, and the commodification of human bodies.
So, Enrica, do you think that the film uses any type of portrayal to showcase the migration, exploitation, and body as a framework of globalization?
Yes, it does.
In what ways?
Through the mise-en-scene, the visualization of the metaphoric, the use of the heart, which represent the metaphoric visual. The heart in Dirty Pretty Things highlights the darker side of globalization in context, in particularly with the organ trafficking. Especially the work of Emily Davis, the intimacy of globalization in bodies and borders, reveals that commodification of human body and exploitation of immigrants is a large going on problem.
So I think since you have mentioned how the use of mise-en-scene elements and you mentioned a heart as a first visual element, I think it is also important to mention how the costumes and makeup plays a significant role. It plays a significant role in exploring the themes of globalization and exploitation. Another thing is Emily Davis' work. Emily Davis' work noticed that the use of mise-en-scene, including costumes and makeup, it explores the complex relationship between globalization, identities, and bodies. So the characters' costumes and the way that they look, which is their makeup, it reflects to their marginalized status and the economic struggle that they are subjected to. For example, we have the character of Qwabe. Qwabe is always dressed in a downward way, which is also take away his identity of being a doctor. He should be wearing something that explains.
Mostly like doctor's uniforms.
Yeah, something like that. Yes. And another thing is the costume that Juliet wears. The costume is provocative because it symbolizes her as a prostitute just by looking at her, not even knowing her profession. Sorry. Furthermore, we can say that the use of costume and makeup in the film underscores the performative nature of identities and the ways in which globalization creates new forms of self-representation and commodifications. Costumes and makeup critiques the way that globalization can lead to the new and the erasure of local identities and bodies. It replaces their culture with globalized hegemonist form of identity.
I think we must wrap up the elements with cinematography, where the dark room highlights the hidden identity. The cameraman uses the camera back view to watch the characters, and which kind of shows that immigrants are always being watched and controlled by the system.
Yes.
For example, when we look at the scene where workers Juliet, Sinaya, and Julia would come into work, they would have to look at the camera for them to clock in.
Yeah. Now we're gonna shift the focus and then explain what we are talking about by giving you realistic examples, which are general examples that happen and most of us know about it. One example is a recent scandal that was trending, whereby social media influencers were recruiting young children, which were aged 21 to 25. They said that they were promoting some program in Russia where children will be given education and access to jobs. But later on, this year, actually, it was found out that program was used for human trafficking.
Again, adding to your example, there was one of the trending stories that influencers took young girls, promising them jobs in Dubai. Imagine who wouldn't want to go to Dubai. They were promised jobs in Dubai, modeling, working in a hotel. But when they got to Dubai, those jobs which they were promised, they were not there. They were turned into prostitution, young girls, boys, even some even threw themselves in somewhere at the flag, right? Hyatt hotels. They threw themselves down, and it was, when police investigated, they said it was suicide. But those young girls were from Zimbabwe, Uganda, Ethiopia, those like Western African countries which are really in poverty. And then like the BBC African Eye wanted more investigation to be done, wanted more, I'd say like highlightation on people, be aware, don't be of things that are happening, don't be just lured to these fancy places, because everything that shines is not always gold.
So was the BBC intention successful though?
Yes, it was successful because we were aware of what's happening in Dubai, and it created more awareness on like we should be aware. Not everything that shines is glitter, and we should not always want this lavish life, behind, because everything behind darkness, we don't know what happens behind closed doors.
Okay. This example is so shocking, I think. This is funny how globalization can be this more darker, whereas it was delivered or introduced during the global revolution. It was introduced as something that will bring development. But now that we can see it darker side, oh, this is so bad. And then I think I can just add to your example about another scandal that I know which happened in Thailand. So people were recruited via social media. They were promised jobs, and then they went there. When they arrived, they took their documents, and then they forced them to perform cyber crimes. They were forced to scam other countries, other neighboring borders. The particular main border that was scammed, it was the one in the mainland.
If I may ask, those people who were recruited, which country were they from?
Okay, so most of them were South Africans, and some of them came from Nigeria and Congo. I'm serious. Those are the lower class countries, if we may say, honestly speaking. And then another shocking thing is that if one of them didn't want to participate in this crime activities, they kill that person. They kill you. And you'll never, they bury you, and your family will never even know about you.
Since we have learned about the darker side of globalization, we also have to learn about the possibilities on how to make globalization pretty.
I think the first possible thing that we can do to avoid the darker side of globalization is through education and awareness. People must be educated about globalization, but whatever relates to globalization, and by that it will encourage individuals to be more informed about anything that's happening, especially through borders and bodies.
And again, we should also learn to promote fair trade. Like we should support our local businesses.
Oh, just like my business. I'm selling clothes, guys. Selling clothes.
We should support local businesses, local communities, and our local artists. By so doing, we will not have our young girls, young males going to other countries to be exploited and turned into sex workers.
Because if you don't buy my clothes, I'm going to China, guys. I'm going to sell there.
Please support.
Another thing that can help is the strengthening of social safety. Government needs
community projects and cultural diversity, we will be able to deal with challenges that we are facing, such as unemployment, our young girls being lured to other countries. We'll be able to stop those kind of things because we'll be able to work together to change this challenge that we are facing.
So guys, just to give you a brief recap of what we have talked about during this podcast. So we touched on the title of the film that we were discussing, which is the Dirty Pretty Things, and then we mentioned how the title is ironic itself. Another thing, we gave a brief background of the film, whereby we introduced main characters as Qwabe and Sanay, and other contributing characters. Another thing, there was a theme of exploitation. The theme was drawn from the main theme of the podcast, which is globalization. And then globalization was defined as the connection of countries among different borders and the exchange of goods and services across borders. Importantly, we introduced the scholarship of Emily Davis, which was published in 2006, and then in contrast we use this to showcase the darker side of globalization and its exploitative ways among immigrants. And then we also mentioned the elements of mise en scene, which was the costume and lighting, makeup, and then what also? And visual elements. And then we moved to possible things that can be done to avoid the darker side of globalization, just after mentioning real life examples, which were the Russian scandal, the Thailand scandal, and the Dubai scandal. So we mentioned education and awareness as the possible thing that can be done to overcome the negative side of globalization. We mentioned
promoting fair trade and cultural
and also
workers, the trust and the betrayal by one of them kind of shows that globalization can be defeated through resistance.
So as you wrap up, guys, it has been an exciting and an educative journey with you. So
thank you for coming with us through this journey. It was a lovely journey. So thank you so much. We hope to see you.
Enjoy your holidays
And be safe. So
bye.
bye.